Hello and welcome back to the reading of the Holy Bible. Today we will be reading Josue or Joshua, chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. Chapter 9, the alliance against Josue. Now when these things were heard of, all the kings beyond the Jordan that dwelt in the mountains and in the plains and in the places near the sea and on the coast of the great sea, they also that dwell by Libanus, the Hethite, and the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Pharisite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite gathered themselves together to fight against Josue and Israel with one mind and one resolution. Deceit of the Gabonites. But they that dwelt in Gabaon, hearing all that Josue had done to Jericho and Hai, cunningly devising, took for themselves provisions, laying old sacks upon their asses, and wine bottles rent and sewed up again, and very old shoes, which for a show of age were clouted with patches, and old garments upon them. The loaves also, which they carried provisions by the way, were hard and broken into pieces. And they went to Josue, who then abode in the camp at Galgal. And he said to him, and to all Israel with him, We are from a far country, desiring to make peace with you. And the children of Israel answered them and said, Perhaps you dwell in the land which falls to our lot. If so, we can make no league with you. But they said to Josue, We are thy servants. Josue said to them, Who are you, and whence came you? They answered, From a very far country thy servants are come in the name of the Lord thy God. For we have heard the fame of his power, all the things that he did in Egypt, and to the two kings of the Amorites that were beyond the Jordan, Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, that was in Ashtaroth. And our ancients and all the inhabitants of our country said to us, Take with you victuals for a long way, and go meet them, and say, We are your servants, make ye a league with us. Behold, these loaves we took hot, when we set out from our houses to come to you. Now they are become dry and broken in pieces by being exceeding old. These bottles of wine, when we filled them, were new. Now they are rent and burst. These garments we have on, and the shoes we have on our feet, by reason of the very long journey, are worn out and almost consumed. They took therefore of their victuals, and consulted not the mouth of the Lord. And Josue made peace with them, and entered into a league, promised that they should not be slain. The princes also of the multitude swore to them. The Gabonites reduced to bondage. Now 3 days after the league was made, they heard that they dwelt nigh, and they should be among them. And the children of Israel removed the camp, and came into their cities on the third day, the names of which are Gibeon, and Kephirah, and Beeroth, and Kiriathaim. And they slew them not, because the princes of the multitude had sworn in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. Then all the common people murmured against the princes, and they answered them, We have sworn to them in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, and therefore we may not touch them. But this we will do to them, let their lives be saved, lest the wrath of the Lord be stirred up against us, if we should be forsworn. But so let them live, as to serve the whole multitude in hewing wood, and bringing in water. As they were speaking these things, Josue called the Gabonites, and said to them, Why would you impose upon us, saying, We dwelt far off from you, whereas you are in the midst of us? Therefore you shall be under a curse, and your race shall always be hewers of wood, and carriers of water unto the house of my God. They answered, It was told us, thy servants, that the Lord thy God had promised his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants thereof. Therefore we feared exceedingly, and provided for our lives, compelled by the dread we had of you, and we took this counsel. And now we are in thy hand. Deal with us as it seemeth good and right unto thee. So Josue did as he had said, and delivered them from the hand of the children of Israel, that they should not be slain. And he gave orders in that day, that they should be in the service of all the people, and of the altar of the Lord, hewing wood and carrying water, until this present time, in the place which the Lord hath chosen. Chapter 10. 5 kings war against Gibeon. When Adon-Esedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard these things, to wit, that Josue had taken Hai, and had destroyed it, for as he had done to Jericho and the king thereof, so did he to Hai and its king, and that the Gabonites were gone over to Israel, and were their confederates, he was exceedingly afraid, for Gibeon was a great city, and one of the royal cities, and greater than the town of Hai, and all its fighting men were more valiant. Therefore Adon-Esedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Oham, king of Hebron, and to Pharam, king of Jerimoth, and to Japhia, king of Lachish, and to Debir, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me, and bring help, that we may take Gibeon, because it hath gone over to Josue, and to the children of Israel. So the 5 kings of the Amorites, being assembled together, went up, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jerimoth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, they and their armies, encamped about Gibeon, laying siege to it. Josue goes to rescue Gibeon. But the inhabitants of the city of Gibeon, which was besieged, sent to Josue, who then abode in the camp at Gilgal, and said to him, Withdraw not thy hands from helping thy servants. Come up quickly and save us, and bring us succor. For all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. And Josue went up from Gilgal, and all the army of the warriors with him, most valiant men. Hailstones destroy the enemy. And the Lord said to Josue, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thy hands. None of them shall be able to stand against thee. So Josue, going up from Gilgal all the night, came upon them suddenly. And the Lord troubled them at the sight of Israel. And he slew them with a great slaughter in Gibeon, and pursued them by the way of the ascent to Beth-horon, and cut them off all the way to Azekah and Makkedah. And when they were fleeing from the children of Israel, and were in the descent of Beth-horon, the Lord cast down upon them great stones from heaven, as far as Azekah, and many more were killed with the hailstones, then were slain by the swords of the children of Israel. The sun and the moon stand still. Then Josue spoke to the Lord in the day that he delivered the Amorite in the sight of the children of Israel, and he said before them, Move not, O sun, toward Gibeon, nor thou, O moon, toward the valley of Ajalon. And the sun and the moon stood still, till the people revenged themselves of their enemies. Is not this written in the book of the just? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down the space of one day. Chapter 10, verse 13. Clarification. The book of the just, an ancient book long since lost. Resuming with chapter 10, verse 14. There was not before nor after so long a day the Lord obeying the voice of a man in fighting for Israel. Execution of the 5 kings. And Josue returned from all Israel into the camp of Gilgal. For the 5 kings were fled, and had hidden themselves in a cave of the city of Makkedah. And it was told Josue that the 5 kings were found hidden in a cave of the city of Makkedah. And he commanded them that were with him, saying, Roll great stones to the mouth of the cave, and set careful men to keep them shut up, and stay you not, but pursue after the enemies, and kill all the hindermost of them as they flee. And do not suffer them, whom the Lord hath delivered into your hand, to shelter themselves in their cities. So the enemies being slain with a great slaughter, and almost utterly consumed, they that were able to escape from Israel entered into fenced cities. And all the army returned to Josue and Makkedah, where the camp then was in good health, and without the loss of anyone. And no man durst move his tongue against the children of Israel. And Josue gave order, saying, Open the mouth of the cave, and bring forth to me the 5 kings that lie hid therein. And the ministers did as they were commanded, and they brought out to him the 5 kings out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jeremoth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon. And when they were brought out to him, he called all the men of Israel, and said to the chiefs of the army that were with him, Go and set your feet on the necks of these kings. And when they had gone and put their feet upon the necks of them lying under them, he said again to them, Fear not, neither be ye dismayed. Take courage, and be strong, for so will the Lord do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And Josue struck and slew them, and hanged them upon 5 gibbets, and they hung until the evening. And when the sun was down, he commanded the soldiers to take them down from the gibbets. And after they were taken down, they cast them into the cave, where they had lain hid, and put great stones at the mouth thereof, which remains until this day. Josue captures Makkedah, Libnah, and Lachish. The same day Josue took Makkedah and destroyed it with the edge of the sword, and killed the king and all the inhabitants thereof. He left not in it the least remains, and he did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. And he passed from Makkedah with all Israel to Libnah, and fought against it, and the Lord delivered it with the king thereof into the hands of Israel. And they destroyed the city with the edge of the sword, and all the inhabitants thereof. They left not in it any remains, and they did to the king of Libnah as they had done to the king of Jericho. From Libnah he passed unto Lachish with all Israel, and investing it with his army besieged it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hands of Israel, and he took it the following day, and put it to the sword, and every soul that was in it, as he had done to Libnah. Josue slays King Horam. At that time Horam, king of Gezer, came up to succor Lachish, and Josue slew him with all his people, as to leave none alive. Josue captures Eglon, Hebron, and Debir. And he passed from Lachish to Eglon, and surrounded it, and took it the same day, and put to the sword all the souls that were in it, according to all that he had done to Lachish. He went up also with all Israel from Eglon to Hebron, and fought against it, took it, and destroyed it with the edge of the sword. The king also thereof, and all the town of that country, and all the souls that dwelt in it, he left not therein any remains. As he had done to Eglon, so did he also to Hebron, putting to the sword all that he had found in it. Returning from thence to Debir, he took it and destroyed it. The king also thereof, and all the towns round about, he destroyed with the edge of the sword. He left not in it any remains, as he had done to Hebron and Libnah, and to their kings. So did he to Debir, and to the king thereof. Verse 37, clarification. The king, an example. The new king who succeeded him that was slain. That was in verse 26. In verse 40, clarification as well, since we are about to go into that verse. And he remains therein, but slew. God ordered these people to be utterly destroyed in punishment of their manifold abominations, and that they might not draw the Israelites into like sins. Josue returns to Galilee. So Josue conquered all the country of the hills, and of the south, and of the plain, and of Asadoth with their kings. He left not any remains therein, but slew all that breathed, as the Lord the God of Israel had commanded him, from Kadesh-barn even to Gaza. And, all the land of Goshen even to Gabaon, and all their kings and their lands he took, and wasted at one onset, for the Lord the God of Israel fought for him. And he returned with all Israel to the place of the camp in Galgal. Chapter 11, League of Kings of the North. And when Jabin, king of Asor, had heard these things, he sent to Jobab, king of Madon, and to the king of Cimarron, and to the king of Achsaph, and to the kings of the north that dwelt in the mountain and in the plains, over against the south side of Senaroth, and in the levels and the countries of Dor by the seaside, to the Canaanites also on the east and on the west, and the Amorites, and the Hethite, and the Pharisite, and the Jebusite in the mountains, to the Hivite also, who dwelt at the foot of Hermon in the land of Maspha. And they all came out with their troops, a people exceeding numerous, as the sand that is on the seashore. Their horses also and chariots, a very great multitude. And all these things assembled together at the waters of Merom, to fight against Israel. And the Lord said to Josue, Fear them not, for tomorrow at the same hour I will deliver all these to be slain in the sight of Israel. Thou shalt hamstring their horses, and thou shalt burn their chariots with fire. Chapter 11, verse 6. Clarification. I apologize for that, pardon me. Hamstring their horses, and burn their chariots with fire. God so ordained that his people might not trust in chariots and horses, but in him. Resuming with chapter 11, verse 7. Josue defeats the kings. And Josue came, and all the army with him, against them to the waters of Merom, on a sudden, and fell upon them. And the Lord delivered them into the hands of Israel. And they defeated them, and chased them as far as the great Sidon, and the waters of Masarephoth, and the field of Masphi, which is on the east side thereof. He slew them all, so as to leave no remains of them. And he did as the Lord had commanded him. He hamstringed their horses, and burned their chariots. Verse 8, clarification. Thereof, dividing his forces, Josue sent some to pursue the fugitives to Sidon. Others he sent to the east side of the Jordan. Resuming with verse 10. Capture and destruction of Asor. And presently, turning back, he took Asor, and slew the king thereof with the sword. Now Asor of old was the head of all these kingdoms, and he cut off all the souls that abode there. He left not in it any remains, but utterly destroyed all, and burned the city itself with fire. And he took and put to the sword, and destroyed all the cities round about, and their kings, as Moses the servant of God had commanded him, except the cities that were on hills and high places. The rest Israel burned. Only Asor, that was very strong, he consumed with fire. And the children of Israel divided among themselves all the spoil of these cities, and the cattle, killing all the men. As the Lord had commanded Moses, his servant, so did Moses command Josue, and he accomplished all. He left not one thing undone of all the commandments which the Lord had commanded Moses. Extent of Josue's victories. So Josue took all the country of the hills, and of the south, in the land of Goshen, and the plains in the west country, and the mountains of Israel, and the plains thereof, and part of the mountain that goeth up to Seir, as far as Balgad, by the plain of Libanus under Mount under the Mount Hermon. All their kings he took, smote, and slew. Josue made war a long time against these kings. Verse 18, clarification. A long time. An example, 7 years, as appears from chapter 14, verse 10. Resuming with verse 19. There was not a city that delivered itself to the children of Israel, except the Hivite, who dwelt in Gabaon, for he took all by fight. For it was the sentence of the Lord that their hearts should be hardened, and they should fight against Israel and fall, and should not deserve any clemency, and should be destroyed as the Lord had commanded Moses. Verse 20, clarification. Hardened. The hardening of their hearts was their having no thought of yielding or submitting. It was a sentence or judgment of God upon them, in punishment for their enormous crimes. God might have changed their hearts by his all-powerful grace, but their crimes caused him to withhold his grace. Resuming with verse 21. Josue annihilates the Anassims. At that time Josue came and cut off the Anassims from the mountains, from Hebron and Debir and Anab, and from all the mountain of Judah and Israel, and destroyed their cities. He left not any of the stock of the Anassims in the land of the children of Israel, except the cities of Gaza and Gath, and Azotus, in which alone they were left. The return of peace. So Josue took all the land as the Lord spoke to Moses, and delivered in possession to the children of Israel, according to their divisions and tribes, and the land rested from wars. Chapter 12. Kings destroyed by Moses. These are the kings whom the children of Israel slew and possessed their land beyond the Jordan, towards the rising of the sun, from the torrent Arnon unto Mount Hermon, and all the east country that looketh towards the wilderness. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and had dominion from Aroer, which is seated upon the bank of the torrent Arnon, and of the middle part of the valley, and of half Galad, as far as the torrent Jabbok, which is the border of the children of Ammon, and from the wilderness to the sea of Cinneroth, towards the east, into the sea of the wilderness, which is the most salt sea, on the east side by the way that leadeth to Bethsemoth, and on the south side that lieth under Asadoth, Phasca, the border of Og, the king of Bashan, of the remnant of the Raphaims, who dwelt in Astaroth, and in Edrei, and had dominion in Mount Hermon, and in Salekah, and in all Bashan unto the borders of Gesuri and Makati, and of half Galad, the borders of Sihon, the king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the children of Israel slew them, and Moses delivered their land in possession to the Reubenites and Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. Kings destroyed by Josue. These are the kings of the land whom Josue and the children of Israel slew beyond the Jordan, on the west side from Balgad, in the field of Libanus, unto the mount part of which goeth up into Seir. And Josue delivered in possession to the tribes of Israel, to every one their divisions, as well in the mountains as in the plains, in the Champaign countries, in Asadoth, and in the wilderness, and in the south was the Hethite and the Amorite, the Canaanite and the Pharisite, the Hivite and the Jebusite. The king of Jericho won, the king of Hai, which is on the side of Bethel, won, the king of Jerusalem won, the king of Hebron won, the king of Jeremoth won, the king of Lachish won, the king of Eglon won, the king of Gezer won, the king of Debir won, the king of Gader won, the king of Herma won, the king of Herod won, the king of Lebna won, the king of Odulam won, the king of Makkedah won, the king of Bethel won, the king of Taphuah won, the king of Ophir won, the king of Aphek won, the king of Saron won, the king of Madon won, the king of Esor won, the king of Semron won, the king of Axpha won, the king of Thenech won, the king of Megiddo won, the king of Cades won, the king of Jachinun of Carmel won, the king of Dor and of the province of Dor won, the king of the nations of Galgal won, the kings of Thirsa won, all the kings 30-1. And that will do it for chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12 of Josue. Join us next week as we continue with chapter 13, 14, 15, and 16. Thank you very much for joining me today. You make sure that you all have a wonderful day, and God bless.